Okay. Yes. I will close the door.
Sounds like a white.
Yeah. Some practice of the old world. Okay. Welcome back to our second panel of our workshop. And before we start, I have some lessons learned from this morning. I have to check my notes because I have to apologize to forgot to introduce and say thank you to Helen, Juliet and Johanna who support us the day, and they were part of my notes tomorrow, but I didn't read it carefully. Okay, on our second panel, we will have also some discussion about the projects you have presented to us in the short videos. But before we start with question and discussion, I would like to introduce our experts. We are able to win 3 experts from the field of didactics and for the workshop, and who will look at the digital Middle Ages, and I think I don't say Middle Age, I think these are Middle Ages from different perspectives. To my left side, Sanne had joined us from the Netherlands. She is an art historian with a special interest in digital art history and medieval and early modern art. She works at the intersection of art history, technical art history, and digital art history, like 3D visualizations, virtual and augmented reality. She currently researches and teaches as an assistant professor at the Department of History and Art History at Utrecht University. Elena did not have quite as far to go because she works as a research assistant at the Ruhr-Universität in Bochum on history, didactics and public history. And the focus of her research is the representation and communication of history in virtual reality, and the question of whether it is an experience of history or past. But she can explain that to us herself in a moment, the term experience is a little bit complicated in German, because we have 2 words, and it's complicated. Over there, Adam Regiewicz, thank you, comes to us from Poland. He is a philologist and film expert. As a professor of humanities in the field of literary studies, he leads the Institute of Literary Studies at the Jan Długosz University of Humanities and Natural Science in Częstochowa.
Yeah.
Is it right? Okay.
Częstochowa.
Yeah, okay. He researches phenomena on the borderline between literary studies and comparative cultural studies. One of his research areas being medievism, with his base on knowledge of medieval culture in relation to modern times, especially pop culture. We're really glad to have you all here. Thank you very much for coming. The second panel will focus on virtual didactics. We are able to watch 3 presentations on this. Sanne spoke on the topic Medieval V, serious fun with the Middle Age. Elena Lewers on diving into 1465, a didactic perspective on the Middle Age and virtual reality. And Adam on the cathedral as a figure of polymedia school education. In the next hour, we will have time for questions about the presentations, also from the audience and from Zoom, via Zoom, and for some discussion. I would start with some questions to every one of you, and in the order of the videos on our homepage, I would like to start with you. Sanne, your presentation was about the serious game Medieval Me, which has two goals. To me, firstly, to illustrate the importance of interdisciplinary work, and secondly, using the example of a medieval book.
Yeah.
In the game, the students take on the role of scientists and research the medieval text. In a screenshot, I stopped the video, and in the screenshot you can see, and I hope I read the Dutch text correctly, that they are supposed to look for a picture of people with big feet in the book. And the question is asked why people had such big feet. Below that, there are 4 possible answers. And my question is, can you explain on this example what the students have to find out, have to do to find out the answer? Yeah, genau, and how the game works.
Yes, that's a good question. I thought you were going to ask, why do they have big feet?
Yeah.
I will not spoil this for you. The game is a collaborative game.
Yeah.
So there are 3 players. There is 1 main player and 2 supporting scientists, so to say. And they all play the game with a device, so with a tablet or with their telephone. The main player has the book, is the owner of the source. So that's the person who can look at the digitized version of Der Natura Blume on the telephone. And they have the difficult question, so the question about the big feet. The other 2 players play mini games. So it's a very simple Kahoot-like game where they have to look at the manuscript and solve small puzzles. And with solving those puzzles, they can unlock hints, and with these hints, they can solve the big question. So they first need to find the hints, and with that information, if they put those hints together, they have enough information to solve the big question. We tailor the question to the specific interest of the student. So in the beginning of the game, they can say, I'm interested in science, or I'm interested in art history, or in languages. So the people with an interest in language will get to transcribe a word, for example. And the question of the big feet was the question for an art historian who gets more iconography questions. The idea of the game is that it is on a very basic level. So it's not high analytical thinking, but we have designed the game in a way that it plays itself. So the teacher is not necessary to help the process. So the teacher can walk around, and that's actually what we saw happening when we were testing it. The teacher went to students and said, "Okay, but what are you doing? What are you looking at?" So they were asking analytical questions to help them also go to a more a metaphysical level and help them think about, okay, but what is science, and how important is it that you collaborate to answer the question and not do this by yourself? So that's how we arranged this.
And the answer of the question why people had such big feet?
Yes, I will not tell you this. You have to play the game.
Okay. Watching the video and scrolling on your website, I'm asking me, are the pupils working with a VR version on the book?
Yes.
Can they?
Well, they cannot leave it true. So that's already a very interesting aspect to an interesting connection to a later presentation of today. We have thought about being able to leave true, but we thought it looks too fake, so to say. So we present one opening of the book, but the book is there as a 3-dimensional object. So we have decided not to do the flat 2D pictures. Students can swap to 2D and to 3D. So if they have to zoom in, for example, on an image, they can look at the 2D picture. But we really wanted to make them aware of that there is an object they're looking at, and not a clipped out picture of a miniature. So there's language, but there's also the materiality of the manuscript. So the little sewing of the holes of the skin of the animal, or the binding. So we try to not make it about loose pictures, but we try to make it about the entire manuscript, the entire object.
And as an historian teacher, what do they learn about the Middle Age?
Or
is it to learn something about how to learn about the Middle Age?
Yes, I think it's more on that meta level, so to say. So they learn things. They learn why people have big feet, and they learn, oh, this is a manuscript, and somebody has written this by hand, and the pieces of paper are actually parchment. So that are the things that they learn. But the more important thing is that they learn how important it is to combine this information of different disciplines. And like I said in my presentation, the school system in the Netherlands is very monodisciplinary. So you're in French class, or you're in math class, and there's also a kind of weight of, if you're doing the science, then you are smart, and if you're doing history, then you are just having fun, so to say. So for me, as a medievalist and someone who is into technical art history and digital art history, I also thought it's important to show that, for example, when we think about digital humanities or digital history or art history, we need actual historians to ask the right questions. If we leave it to the engineers, cool things will happen, but not necessarily the things that will help us to understand better how these Middle Ages were and what happened. So the importance of combining these things. So in Dutch we call it vakoverstijgend leren. I don't know what's the proper translation in
interdisciplinary.
Yeah, interdisciplinarity, and we see it in high school that it's becoming much more important, and that's also what this game is. It's an opportunity for teachers who find this important, but who are also trained very monodisciplinary. So if you're a science teacher, then you went to university and had science class, but you know nothing about the Middle Ages. But with this game, you can safely let your students play it. You don't need any knowledge whatsoever, because everything is in the game. That's one of the things that we got back from the teachers that we interviewed. We do not have time to prepare. We do not have time to read stuff or to find out more information. We wanted to, play itself. That's what we made. And it gives you the opportunity, for example, if you're a science teacher, to play it and to say, okay, but what's the science in this? And then maybe it's the makeup of the pigments. So the elements that are in azurite or in something like that. And that, I hope that opens a window of awareness of how we all work together in science.
The system is like similar to German. It's also, we call it das Fach. So,
it's vak in Dutch, yes.
And,
Sorry.
And on another level, there was also interdisciplinary collaboration concerning the creation of the app. You said it was a collaboration between heritage, academia, and creative
agency. Creative industries. Yes.
Can you explain what the responsibilities who had in this game of working together, and were there any conflicts? And one question is, who have to translate it, anything to whom?
Yes. Okay, so this game had a very interesting start, and with that start, by telling this, I'm going to chase away all the online public, because the beginning of this game was the medieval meme generator, and if you haven't seen that yes, everyone has seen it. Well, then you know I do not need to explain anything. I worked with that project. I did not think of it, unfortunately, but I was connected sideways to it. And for me, as a scientist, I was impressed with the amount of outreach that it created. Medieval miniatures became, trending on Twitter, and I thought, this is gold. And then I went to the creative agency who had made it together with the Royal Library, and I said, okay, we need to think of something cool, because we have gold in our hands. We need to work this out. And I was thinking very scientifically, so I thought, okay, we have to sit down and watch the literature. And they said, no, we will do a design thinking session. We will call up some teachers. invite some experts to talk about this, and we will just try to learn what the problem is. And that for me was a very new way to approach this. So to go to the public and ask what is it that you need, instead of going to the library and read a lot and then come up with a sound research question. So then we wrote up a proposal which went to the science communication round. So the Dutch National Science Agenda has devoted money to science communication. So we did an application there, and we won this. And I dare to say that that's not because of me, but that's because of the way that the design agency tackled this problem. So they said, we're not making something that no one wants. After that, we started working together. We are in a team with 2 people from the Royal Library in The Hague, I as the scientist, and 2 people from Doyle, the creative agency, and a developer. And what we saw in the beginning was that we had to together collaboratively think out the game, and then we had some discussions. So they wanted to do all kinds of cool stuff, and I said, no, that's not medieval. No, cut gems that were glowing. I said, no, sorry, can't do that. It has to be a coin. And they were like, really, a coin? I said, yes, absolutely. So those discussions were taking place, and we needed to find a balance between fun and being scientifically sound, because it has to be okay, it has to be correct. And after that, our ways separated. So the creative agency was doing making the gameplay and constantly talking with me about, okay, does this work? Do you like this? Thinking of the design. I was working on the questions, which is, I think, the hardest part, because try to think of a good question and then multiple 50 times, kind of difficult. But then again, when I was writing it down very boringly, scientifically, the agency said, okay, but we need to rephrase this because everyone will fall asleep when we put it in the game. And the Royal Library, of course, was there because they are the curators of the manuscript. So the curator, and they also do the project management. So they make sure that everything is set and that we can go and move on. Did we have fights? No, we did not have fights. Actually, I really like working with people from outside academia. I think it's very stimulating. We did have problems. For example, when we wrote the proposal, we said we want to do all levels of high school. So preparation for scientific, but also the lowest, lowest not quite a good word, but the more practical students who do not encounter science a lot. We have tried that, but we have not succeeded yet. So that's something we need to work on. So we will present later this year the game to the preparation science levels, and we will work another year with teachers from VMBO, which is the target group, to improve the game, to make sure that it can also be played in those classrooms.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
The next in line is Elena, and your lecture was about the question of how the Middle Age, or perhaps better, how the Middle Ages are represented in virtual reality, and whether and how one can learn history with it in school or in the museum. Your example was a 360-degree film from a museum that promised a journey back in time to the Middle Age without a DeLorean or with the VR glasses. The visitor became a time traveler and can observe life in the Middle Ages. That is a promise. My question, you explained in your video that the Middle Ages have only a limited connection with the Middle Age. But why should one nevertheless deal with this representation of the past in school?
Good question, of course, but we can't get in touch with the past itself, but we can get in touch with the representation, with the reconstruction of it. And this is one main element of history education in school. We should deal with representations and analyze them and show what sources are used, what image is presented, and why. When the application is constructed, we heard before in the presentations, we have a specific intention. We want to show a building that is not there anymore, or we want to build a time travel as in the video I used in my presentation. And by analyzing this, films, the application, etc., we call it Geschichtsbewusstsein. In English we can say historical consciousness, maybe. So the students can learn about historical consciousness and can learn to take part in historical culture, in memory culture, because they learn how media constructs our images of the past with this ways of deconstruct these images of the Middle Ages or of another time periods. I'm not an expert in the Middle Ages, but in the didactic part of it. So the content is of course important, but the ways of analyzing and deconstructing are the same when you watch an VR application about Roman Empire or so on, I would say. So we, let me have a look. So yeah, that's the answer. Yeah. That's why we should work with the applications in school or in museums or maybe on archives and historical sites and so on.
Yeah. In the history culture, people like to talk about experiencing the past, and it's something to do with feel the presence in the virtual reality, and there's an experience of past, and you can join the Middle Age, you can join the GDR, you can join the Roman Empire, and why is the feeling of presence, or why could the feeling of presence in such a medial representation a problem for historical consciousness?
Yeah, that's difficult to answer, because we don't want to say that experience the past or having fun in the past with VR is wrong. That's not that what we want to say, but the feeling of presence that shows studies from media psychology or social psychology, that the feeling of presence can lead to that the recipients uncritically take the content for real when they feel when they have a feeling of presence, and that is something that we have in mind when we use these applications in school. VR applications works over emotions and strong images, audio, and so on and so on, and it's fun, yes, and that is right, that should be, but I have one moment. But we have to be aware that it influences our perception and emotions. And if you're emotional, maybe you know by yourself, you don't think, or you don't reflect that way. And we should, if we work with VR applications, we should address this reflective thinking at the students.
concerning this. Do you see a possibility to represent the Middle Age on a scientific way in virtual reality anyway? Or is it impossible?
So yes and no.
Yeah.
I think the
Thank
key,
you for the clear answer.
I think the key word is representation.
Yeah.
So we never get a authentic, real, complete presentation of what it was back then. We as historians, we all know this, and it's not. It's okay, no? Also, it's not a problem, but we should not tell someone that it's possible. We should make clear that it is a representation, that it's not the Middle Ages itself, but a constructed image of the certain time. We can use many sources. We can try to get as near as we can and at a certain setting, certain persons. But note, as a time machine, I don't know if you really want that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I don't. So unsure. So yeah. Thank you very much. The third one is Adam, and your contribution takes a pop cultural representation of a medieval-looking cathedral as a starting point for a reflection on contemporary education, and the Cathedral of the Middle Ages as a complex communication system, or better, as a complex communicative text, become a mirror image for new media. And different media interact and want to explain the world, and people have to decode and understand this. My question is, what significance does the virtual Middle Age have for your idea of education? And perhaps you can explain it at your example, and you just want to show
presentation. Okay. So, as I said in the audiovisual speech, it all started with Bagiński film, Cathedral. When I saw this animation based on the story of Polish science fiction writer Jacek Dukaj, I realized that not only Nikolai Berdyaev and Umberto Eco were right about the new Middle Ages, but also researchers who deal with new media, such as J. David Bolter, for example. He writes that about the cathedral and the book. And now, if you can, the medieval cathedral, filled with statues and stained glass, was not only a symbol of the authority of Christianity, but also a repository of medieval knowledge about the world and the human condition. The cathedral was a library whose books were read by believers walking the aisles and raising their eyes to biblical scenes, images of science, allegories of virtues and vices, or visions of heaven and hell. The printed book immobilized the viewer of this spatially distributed encyclopedia, made reading an individual rather than a collective act, and stripped it of its ritualistic qualities. The very act of walking around the aisles, or even following the lines of the spires and the ascent towards the weaves on the ceiling, had a symbolic and didactic dimension. The process of reading stone books in Gothic and later Renaissance cathedrals was controlled by a structured knowledge system built into the cathedral space. The traversing temple space, the visitor performs a reading enriched by body movement and memory work, and this is the first move. Following this line of thought, a whole series of parallels can be seen between the cathedral and new media. I will mention a few of them. The first one, of course, technological determinism. This is when the transformation of the labor marked by technology takes place. Moreover, Umberto Eco writes about the return to the Middle Ages. We are still living under the influence of medieval technology. And second one, the madness of cataloging. Database-based computer memory is not just a catalog. It is associative rather than linear, allowing networks of associations to develop in data sets in the manner of human memory. A similarity to the database can be found in the medieval catalogs. Medieval man was an organizer, a classifier, a system builder. Medieval culture has a bookish nature and a passionate love of systematization. And palimpsest, next one. Both new media coding and cultural coding are based on the same principle, overriding new content with all content, of course. And next one, Bible pauperum. Both it's polymedially, and for me it's a second very important point to similarities. Because connect word and image, of course, and movement. And didactic impact are very reminiscent of the modern concept of multimedia and entertainment. The Middle Ages is a civilization of picture, in which the cathedral appears as a great book carved in stone and actually constitutes an advertisement, or as a television screen or a mystical comic image that must tell and explain everything. The pictoriality of medieval and contemporary culture is not just reduced to the iconosphere and its artistic production, but encompasses the whole world of mental imagery and the mechanism the culture uses to reach its audience. And next one, the mystical experience. And another? Okay, another, because I talk about entertainment. Yeah, mystical experience. I wrote about that many years ago in similarities between simulacrum and the mystical experience as an entry into the extrasensory world. This is what virtuality provides us with today: presence and yet absence. And next, the most important experience, and next, yeah, medieval facade, yeah. The most important experience of medievalism in new media, for me, is a spatiality. I am reminded of it by hypertext. J. David Porter argues that a constitutive feature of hypertext is the rhythm. A rhythm of the creation, a rhythm of reading, of the communication. Someone who reads has to make a movement to follow and to determine the reading path. The cathedral, in its architectural uniqueness, allows itself to be read on the move, requiring the user to be active, to act, to endeavor, on both the kinetic and intellectual level. This active reading of the cathedral's text triggers in the passerby a memory that reaches back to acquired knowledge, to intuitive knowledge, and to knowledge which is offered to him by the signs and symbols distributed in the space of the cathedral, demanding a certain effort, the cognition and the discovery of a mystery. There are a few other common features, like the transmediality of notes. The cathedral offers a transmedia narrative, broken up between different types of message. The multiplicity of messages corresponded to the diversity of form, from iconography through the matter of sculpture to the melody of Gregorian choral, accompanying the prayers, usually carrying a similar message content. Of course, we need to know the differences. Hypertext is something decidedly different. Unlike the cathedral, hypertext has no boundaries, for example. Moving through hypertext is more random. The cathedral is closed. Moving around the cathedral follows a map drawn on the basis of the building's outline, the plan of the temple. Transferring the consideration to the field of education and educational planning, I wanted to say that given the changes taking place in civilization today, it's necessary to return to the spatial and at the same time polymedial concept offered by cathedral. So I think about the cathedral as a figure of thought. I understand it as a spatial category, much like hypertext, which is a good illustration of contemporary movement through the virtual world. One can imagine an education plan similar to hypertext. I even described it once. It seems to me that the chronological thinking present in Polish education now does not serve the education of competence needed into the modern world. What is needed is associated thinking, using the phenomena of convergence as transmedial, connective, socialist. But moving through a hypertext is more random and unlimited than a closed object. Not only is the cathedral closed, but it also supported by pillars. And second one, I talk about three concepts: about plan, about pillars, and about vault. As I said, I understand pillars. Next. I said pillars in the cathedral as a foundational categories. They can be specific values or texts, so-called milestones, like myth, the categories of existence, the Bible, the category of religion, the Shakespeare, like a category of emotion, or community, category of nations, societies. From these pillars arise realizations, starry ones relating to literature, music, painting, film, and so on. Where then does virtually come from? I understand it in the Baudrillard spirit as a kind of simulacrum, a reality that does not allow itself to be defined by traditional ontology. It is about the potentiality of existence. It is the same with the cathedral as a figure of thought. It refers to what is while remaining in the realm of the concept. Virtuality makes it possible to superimpose the concept of the cathedral on the texting model of education and to see points of commonality. At the same time, the concept allows itself to be more easily modified, to adapt to a changing reality. It also allows to students to take any place he or she wants, gives them the opportunity to walk around the cathedral, to take different stances: tourist, explorer, detective, and the four figure about I talk.
Okay, there's come up another question for me. Dealing with the past, in this case with the cathedral, is also dealing with the presence at the same time, and can also help to understand our world. And if I try to understand this world, I can also understand our world, but the way around. To understand the virtual world, or to know the virtual world, can this also help to understand the Middle Age?
Of course, it's not the same. It's not the same. Yeah. Of course, I didn't want to say that to understand Middle Ages, we understand us. Of course, we can, but it's not the same. I thought about I thought about cathedral as a figure of thinking. Because we are in the contemporary. We are in the same, in my opinion, in the same place, in the history, when we can use the more than only read, than only text, because the text is a part of modernity for me. And now we are in the times when we can use the more sensuality experience, and use the most media. So we can, like Walter Ong said, about oral tradition, next oral tradition, and we can we use touch in everyday life, like a part of our world. So we can use all our sensitive, so we can behave like a man in the medieval time.
Yeah.
So it is similar for me.
Yeah. So the new media is a kind of homecoming to explaining and presenting the world and the order of the world,
so like that,
in a cathedral.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. It's a very interesting approach. Yes. One last question, perhaps a little bit provocant. Does contemporary education need the Middle Ages in this case, or does it need the cathedral to understand our world?
Yeah, I think it's true. We need to understand that, to understand us, because we are founded on this tradition, of course, but we are founded in this way of thinking. So we did everything to destroy that in our civilization, but I think we return to the Middle Ages, what Bunnenberg said.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, at this point I will open the discussion for questions from the audience and from Zoom. And are there any questions to the project of these three experts?
The question for Sanne. Two questions. The first question is because you said you also deal with scientific knowledge, or at least trying to engage these children also if they're interested in science. Do you, because Der Natuur Bloemen is a text that is kind of like a I can't think of the word now.
Encyclopedia?
An encyclopedia, yeah. So with all of this knowledge from the whole natural world, do you also engage them in medieval science, encyclopedic knowledge?
Yes, a little bit, but of course our possibilities are limited. But for example, in the beginning of KBK 16, there are diagrams with the planets. And of course that's a very nice way to show that often people in the Middle Ages knew a lot more than we think now, and that they were thinking about their space in the universe. So that's, for example, a hook that we can use to show them that there is something like scientific thought in the Middle Ages. So that's a very concrete example. We're constantly, when we started, I was thinking, okay, I'm going to develop a game that really makes them think analytically, but to be honest, that's very, very difficult. And when I started, I was telling what I wanted to the design agency, and they said, okay, well, maybe you have to call the makers of Assassin's Creed, because we're never going to be able to do this. And that is, of course, what we have to take into account. For this also is the fact that it's a project. It's a funded project. it has a beginning, it has an end, and then we have to let the baby go and just hope that it will live forever, so to say. So we actually made a decision to keep it simple, so to have the mini games not very analytical, but to make it Kahoot games that are fun, because that's also an aspect that we want. You know, we want them to have a fun 45 minutes, so that they associate science with fun and not with difficult and complex things. So we have to work within the boundaries of what is possible. So it looks, if you look at it, the design is almost ready. It looks a bit like a board game. It looks a bit quirky. The developer has used all the pen work of the manuscript for the design of the game. So the whole design is thought about, and we bring back the interesting features that are in the manuscript. I do not think that the students will notice that, but for me that is important.
Second question, actually, I mean, it can be open to any of the three speakers. I'm interested in that Elena said something about having critical and uncritical users, and I'm wondering if you're developing a game like this, but just generally, I think when we're thinking of these recreations or imaginations of the Middle Ages, is there a possibility to create critical users? How do you stimulate younger people to be critical of these kinds of things?
Well, I think that the medieval meme generator, I have to say the medieval meme generator. I think that the medieval meme generator shows that is in fact not very difficult, because if you make it relevant for your public, then they will look. So the meme generator is, in short, it's a website where you get a picture or miniature out of one of the manuscripts of the collection of the Royal Library, and you can make a meme with it. So you can put a text up and down, download it. No subscription or anything is necessary, so it's very simple. And I think the golden thing that they did was they put a little text and a video with an expert about the miniature. So what is it that you're looking at? And what we see in the user data is that people actually look at these explainer videos, and we saw on Reddit, we saw discussions about, but what is this? Why has this man cut off his genitals? What's the story behind this? You know, the images are really good. They are also picked with the intended audience. So I would say take the elephant from Der Nature Blumen. They did not, because it was not the best rated by the audience. But I know, it will be there in the next version. What I try to say is that the material often is enough to let people ask questions, and if you let them look at it and think about it and try to relate it to their own world, then I think you have the critical thinking that you need. So in the end of our game, the students unlock a special page of the meme generator. So we stimulate them also to work with the memes and to make them relevant for their own lives and environments.
Lena?
Yeah, maybe.
Of course. Sorry.
Yeah, because you ask all of us.
Yeah, please.
Because your question is very important. I wanted to ask in the first panel, because it's the same. How to ensure that games, virtual objects, and some like that, what we talk about, do not remain in the realm of entertainment, and lead student to knowledge. Or we can ask about American Museum, what Echo said. Maybe it's the same, and I thought about that, and I think it's a role which student take in this education, in this place. So I thought about four. I talked to about four, about tourists. Yeah, when he moves only, yeah, and click and watch and nothing that, and take a photo, yeah, and like a flaneur, yeah. But I thought about two figures, explorer and detective. Detective. The explorer is character derived from Cooper or Twain's books, yeah, no. And this attitude is close to contemporary quest users. By solving successive tasks, the explorer conquers and learns. At the same time, he discovers his own identity. And the second one is detective. What you said, yeah, and is a modern figure. It is an attitude based on a confidence in knowledge, grounded in the foundation of rationality, scientism, and skepticism. His task is to discover intentionality and causality. Detective's attitude involves deductive and analytical skills that needed to draw on erudition. So I think we need to explore the two figures, yeah, the detective and the explorer, to create this. What you said.
May I add?
Yeah, of course.
So all what Sanne and Elena said before, I think the question was how to stimulate critical users, and I think we can stimulate through questions to stimulate their own way of thinking, and I think one way is to break with their beliefs and the images they brought with. We in German history education we talk about Alteritätserfahrung or Zeitdifferenzerfahrung. So that the students look closer. When they see something they don't know, they will look closer. When they see something that irritates them, they will look closer. So that's the way speaking with others is very important, because every student constructs his individual one understanding and one construction, and only in speaking with others we can reflect this, what we are thinking. Yes, and I think that these settings, these educational settings, bring new roles for students and for teachers. It's the students are in focus. They it's their experience that is important, and that they should reflect. And teachers are the person that leads them to reflecting, and leads them to get to that question and give them the information they needed. But it's not the teachers in the front and telling the truth, and the students try to understand what they're saying. Yeah,
I just want to say something really quickly, but because I'm thinking on paper also, it's just I'm interested in, and maybe also in the previous session, but definitely in here, that the role of emotion is so strong. Like when you say you want to irritate someone to provoke questions, I think that's super interesting and important.
Okay. Yeah. On my list there's Elena, Klaus, and someone from the internet. Yeah, okay. Okay, we do it in this line. Yeah.
First, thank you all for your come also. Maybe it's a big question about new media and new education. So, what do you think? What do we need for a change also in education, that we can use all these beautiful projects, and also about thinking like hypertextuality, intertextuality. So I think we got this old structure, and it's really hard to get in touch also with students, maybe because the teachers are just at the front and saying you have to learn this in the book and read this and that's it. So what has to change in the education, maybe also in the studying of the disciplines, and also I think it's a big part the financial term. So I read yesterday, I think, the news like Nordrhein-Westfalen gets bought only 3,000 glasses, VR glasses for classes. So it was like, oh, cool. So they can use it, but we don't know. Hold on. Yeah.
Can I reflect on that?
Yes.
Because we had a kind of a problem. We will have a problem in January because we were thinking about accessibility of the game. So we thought, okay, we will do it on something that almost every 16-year-old has, namely a mobile phone. Of course, it can be an old mobile phone, no problem. Our game is web-based, so they do not need to download an app or something, and it's really scalable. You can play it on every telephone, and if you do not have a telephone, you play it on a tablet. What was in the news this September? Mobile phones will be forbidden in the classroom. Yes. Because it takes away the attention of the students, and well, there we were with our cool game on a mobile phone. So that discussion, first we thought, oh, how are we going to solve that? And then, of course, the design people thought, no, it's an opportunity. So the discussion that we need to have, I think, with one another is what technology do we want in our classrooms? What do we find important? So are we going to invest in VR glasses? And if so, we know that these VR glasses will be old-fashioned in 2 years. So then again, the fact of durability of your investments, or are we going to do it with the cardboard Google glasses where you put your telephone in, which might be not so cool, but maybe the more durable thing. So I think it's a nationwide discussion that needs to be had, and fortunately in the Netherlands we are now talking about this on a very basic level, namely, do we want a telephone or not? I think that's a very concrete example of how you need to be aware of this. And your other question, how can we let the system use these kind of things? We've asked that question to the high school teachers when we were beginning with the game. And in the Netherlands you have a list of 50 items that students need to know when they do their exam. Yeah. So I don't know what the proper term of it, but 5 years, the preparation for scientific research, 5 years they have wonderful education, thinking critically, and the last year it's only about knowing this list of 50 things and knowing what terms to use when you have to give the answer. For me, that was an eye-opener. I thought, really, is this what we are teaching our students? Yeah. And that needs to change. There needs to be. So now we are thinking about moving the game to a younger public because there's more freedom in the curriculum for high school teachers. Because in 6 VWO, so in the sixth class or grade, they will not use it because they don't have time, because they have to take in this list of 50 things that they need to reproduce, and that's it. It's also very frustrating for the teachers, I learned recently.
Yeah, we need money and we need time, and the system has to, as you said, has to change, and there are many problems. You said something about the hardware and software. The hardware is useless if you have nobody who can use it and who can tell the students how to use it. The software has to be explained. The game has to be explained. So we, have to teach the teachers and to have to teach the students, and we need time for this, as you said, and we need internet in school and in university, and that's obviously a big problem in 2023. So I don't know how the next years will also it will go on in the next years because there are many problems and less time, also not enough time and not enough money, I think, in the institutions they needed it. But teachers are fond of finding.
I can see at three points. The first one, of course, is technological, but in Polish experience shows that it's no problem because our government a few years ago gave us our children laptops, and nothing changed. The first. Second one is of course structure, but when I worked in secondary school, the high school, I realized the concept of education in the structure, and it will be, and was you can do it if you want. And third, I think most important, change the teacher thinking. Every reform in the Poland failed by teachers. Serious. Every reform from 20 years failed by teachers because teachers teach us. They teach this. Nothing changed.
I find it very interesting because I'm experiencing the opposite. So the most active group that is supporting us is the people who are teaching the teachers, who say something needs to change. We want to do this, and we have, for example, teacher societies like Clio you have in the Netherlands. They are very avid supporters of these kind of projects and really want them to succeed. So they take an active role in saying, okay, but this is what we need and this is what we want. So I think if you find the right group of people, then it can be, then it's 2 times 2 is 10. So it's too bad to hear that structure is not there.
Yeah. I have 2 ideas for a meme.
Good.
Bring your own device, but you are not allowed to bring your own device.
Yes.
And nothing changed, but everything is fine. No, I think it's a kind of this epic fight between content and methods. And in German, there's also the discussion in history didactics. Are we talking about the Middle Age or the GDR or on the topic, or are we talking about how we are talking about this? And there's it seems to be, so I call it an epic fight, that there is, when you choose the one side, there's no place for the other side. But if I understand you right, there must be the place for two sides, and this is only possible to teach history in a modern way when you take a look on both sides, on the sources and the past, and on the history and the storytelling about the past in the present. And but it's a long and hard way. It seems to be a long and hard way. We have
from the internet.
We have Klaus, the person from the internet, and yes, we take it in this role.
Well, thank you very much for all of this. This has been quite a technical discussion in the last few minutes. So we're talking about strategies, approaches, feasibilities, etc. And I would like to group a few observations together that I mainly draw from Elena's video, and try to refocus on, well, opportunities, possibilities that go with the virtual. Because on the one hand, I have to say that I very much sympathize with your focus and conclusion, saying, well, we have to create a sense and inspire a sense of the constructed nature of the images, the narratives we convey. It's about history being a reconstruction and so on. But then again, I was asking myself whether this does not mean missing one of the central opportunities and chances that we can offer ourselves through immersive or VR technologies. Because in the end, when we focus too exclusively on history being a narrative, we might lose out of sight the empathic notion or the empathic side of history. Because the people we're talking about, in the histories we're talking about, they were real people. They were suffering. Women were violated, women and children and men were beheaded, they fell ill, they had feelings. And I was wondering whether VR and immersive practices would not be a technology that allows us to better approach this dimension of history. Not necessarily, and there we're on the same page in the sense of we can deal with reality, but to inspire a sense of history not being so abstract as it becomes a narrative. It's easy to talk about, well, someone has driven or shot a bullet at another person, or driven a stake through another person's heart. But it's quite different from seeing it. And we all make this experience in the movies when we say that something has been depicted to gruesome, even if we know it's fiction, but it actually touches us. We can't escape from the force of the images. And I do know that this kind of overwhelming doesn't apply to the norms and regulations we have for school teaching, obviously. But does this kind of possibility to evoke feelings, to create empathy, is this not another chance of virtual techniques?
You want to go first, Elena?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, this is one of the main questions, I think. We talk about the role of emotions very little. I don't really know. I think that history should not be too abstract and that we can use emotions in this way of historical learning. It's important to see the feelings of the persons of the past and the feelings of the students who interact with it or see it. And what we can't do is to tell the students that they should feel like the person in the past, because that's not possible and that can be overwhelming. But I think it's possible to shape applications or images that it's a difficult question.
And if I may add a detail,
yeah.
I did not mean that we should try to teach our pupils or students to feel or try and feel like our ancestors felt. That's not the point. But to realize that they were actually living, feeling people who suffered, who had illnesses, who loved, whatever. So to realize this aspect of human existence.
Yeah, I think we can show this. We know, as you mentioned, films about the Middle Ages that address our emotions and that show us that they felt and lost and loved and so on and so on. Maybe we can show this on an emotional way, but deconstructed after and before. But I don't think that this should be the only answer. We should do it in the virtual reality, but I don't have the perfect one shot this moment. Maybe you have?
Well, not a perfect answer, too bad, spoiler alert. But what I find interesting is that we we measure the impact of our game. We have the Impact Lab at the Utrecht University, and they help us to see if our impact projects actually have impact, which is quite logical, you would think, but it often doesn't happen. And one of the ways that we do that is with an actual paper form with smileys. So a smiley, a very happy smiley, a straight smiley, and an unhappy smiley, which they have to do in front of the game and after the game. So we're actually measuring if they have experienced emotions, because our Impact Lab say if they have felt something, then you probably also have an attitude change. So that's an interesting thing to take into account. So from the perspective of the Impact Lab, who are psychologists, emotions are important to change something, to have impact with your game. The other thing I wanted to say is that gaming is the perfect way to do this. So I was on a gaming conference a couple of weeks ago at Utrecht University, and there was a high school teacher who made a game using PowerPoint. I was stunned because it looked wonderful, and I thought, okay, we're here, we have this large project, and you are just in your free time making this game. Please come and work for me. But what he did, he devised a game where someone was the advisor of the Emperor of China, or the Chinese Empire. And the advisor constantly had to make a decision. So what advice are you going to give the emperor, this or that? And then there was an gevolg, an outcome of that decision. And while playing that game, you felt empathy with this advisor. So you felt, okay, it's not so easy to give a good advice, because if you do this, then this goes wrong, and if you do that, then that goes wrong. So this is not directly showing emotion, but it is a way to let a person empathize with an actual character in history. And I think that's a safe way to do it, so to say.
Okay, for me, the simple answer is the key is narration, because the subject from history, subject who was created by new technology, need to story. Subject not only say about history. They need to story. We need to someone who tell us about the situation, about the medieval times, about suffer. Yeah. So I think it's and I want to ask you about the role of the story in your game, because I think it's an important concept. Yeah,
yes. Well, that's something that has become less important than I thought. When we were starting, I thought, okay, we need to have a very sound narrative of what is going to happen. So you are part of a research group, or we have found a lost manuscript. How are we going to find out everything we want to know about it? But while we were testing with the students, just the fact that we were telling them, okay, you're a scientist now, and you can pick what kind of expertise you want and just go and play, was enough for them to be captured, because the material itself is good enough. The pictures are so crazy that you are immediately drawn into it. You think, what is it I'm looking at? So in the end, in the game there is not a narrative, but we are working on a narrative for teachers who have time to devote a little bit more to it, so they can present the narrative if they feel that it's applicable or necessary. Or so we decided to take it out of the game, that narrative. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And perhaps you have to be overwhelmed by emotions first before you can reflect on it, and before you can see the differences between our time and the past, and I think when you can see these differences, you can see the past clearer, and in more details. Yeah.
And then you create a
Yeah. It's a never-ending story. I would close the list for this moment. We had the next one is the person from the internet, and then Katja and Gert. And we have 15 minutes to go, and I think three questions is a good number. Okay.
Molly P. asked one question addressed to Adam Regiewicz. Medieval cathedrals were more than heaven-bound structures filled with visual ideas and stories about life, religion, and morality. They were also community centers that relied on broader sensory experiences, smell, sound, touch, to engage their visitors and encourage them to contemplate and embrace their messages. How do you think new media can also engage our senses beyond vision to make use of this medieval style of multi-sensory teaching?
Of course, we can understand this ask in the two ways. In the technological, of course, we can imagine that it will be possible to make education in 4 or 5D. Yeah. Why not? Yeah. We have a cinema 5D, so no problem to create in the classroom this situation. But I think the most important is on this thinking way. Yeah, when we can create education when we starting from text or not from text. Okay, we can understand text in global sense, yeah, in holistic sense, like music, film, architecture, and text, of course, literature, and something like that. So we're starting from one text and linking to another text with another sensual experience. So it is possible, of course.
Just in the same vein, we already got the distance. The thing virtual reality gives us are just pictures. And pictures in sequence, a narrative or whatever, that's what we use. We seldomly use sound, Gregorian chants or whatever, yeah, but that would be about it. Yeah? And thank God we do not smell the people. Yeah? We already got that distance, but we got used to saying the picture, that's reality. And that's where we have to think for ourselves. Is this reality, or are we just, working with pictures that we suggest to our students to take for reality? That's not a clean way to use virtual reality. Yeah, suggesting to them that this is a sort of reality. We just got pictures.
But answering you, I want to show someone. If you want to, because Lech Majewski made a movie starting from picture Peter Bruegel, and could you this part, this fragment of this paint who create the medieval society, and from picture, but to society, to real life, and this beginning of this movie, good understanding us, help understanding us.
So you say that the movement of this, that it's a picture that is starting to move, starting to be real people. That's the.
And Majewski invites us to inside the picture and inside to medieval relationship, because it's the beginning of the history. One of a few of characters in this movie.
They did this also with the Night Watch. They made a 3D 3D version of it with all the people, and you could walk around.
Mm-hmm.
And,
okay.
Can I do a short? Because I was triggered by the notice about the smell. Because actually, I was in a lecture of a colleague of mine who has done a very interesting project. It's our art lab. It's a laboratory that recreates, reconstructs actual recipes and stuff. And they made a candle of Constantijn Huygens. He had a recipe for his mother, and they recreated the candle. And she was telling about her project to my students, and she started with lighting the candle. So it was a very performative act, and then she put it down, and then the scents filled the room, and you saw that the students reacted to that. So the inclusion of smell, maybe not the smell of the medieval cathedral, but
the candle has a very strong smell. I have it at home.
I know, I have it too in a locked closet. When I open it, it's like...
I had it on the balcony for summer because I couldn't stand it in my apartment.
No, Constantijn Huygens did not have a really good taste in scent, but I think it's a very interesting way of approaching this. So the sensory turn with smell, sound, to include that in the classroom would be interesting, although very hard. And I agree with you that we need more than just VR to create this. Yeah.
There are 200 years ago there were immersive attractions which have a focus on smell also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just add a tiny footnote, because at Lausanne they are currently preparing the VR representation of the so-called Murten panorama, which depicts a battle in 1476. And they actually plan on including smell experiences for individual details of the picture you're looking at.
Yeah.
So you got sound, you got the image, moving images actually. You can focus and zoom in and out, and you will be able to smell, hopefully.
Cool.
Katja, the golden question of this panel. No pressure.
No pressure at all. I would like to come back to the cathedral once, because to me it sounds like a very metaphoric interpretation of the cathedral, and it's very convincing on one hand, but on the other hand, I ask myself, is the cathedral at the same time a place of religious oppression and social barriers, and also origin of religious fightings? So how to adjust the balance of these aspects? And a second question to all the speakers, how to deal with those overwhelming experiences in the context of using games or educational tools. So on what basis do we speak about allowing games to use those effects? And this links also to the discussion which we had before, like mentioning history as being a narrative or looking at it on the side of empathy. And I wonder if we need more to reflect on the constructed forms of emotional effects, which also contains always the potential for prejudice and bias.
Yeah, thank you. But of course, what I said, I think about cathedral in the first as a figure of thinking, and what you said, and I think about cathedral as an architectural concept, spatially concept. But you're right. I think now, that when we are coming, we come inside cathedral, we can take a place in this cathedral. It's our role, which place we'll take. So the student, the people, the same. We can show him or her the areas of barrier, and he or she can take a place in this inside. So I think because I thought about it because in Poland is the most popular direction to discovering peasant history now, peasant, and it's the same theme of suffer of peasants, especially peasant women in village in the 19th centuries, 18th centuries, and his role is the same moment, like our new film candidate to Oscar, Peasants, it's an animation. The story tells us about the same. It's the women in this group and suffer in this group. So I think it's the same in the cathedral, because the story is universal. I can answer in that.
Yeah.
I have a question about. Yeah, sorry. I have a question about the question on the emotion, and do you refer to the use of what we are making in popular culture, or bringing popular culture in a classroom? I'm not sure I correctly understood.
Yeah, I was thinking about emotion as a construct or as part of the construction of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And that's different from like our understanding of I think of an interaction on our daily life level. So we have to take in account that we have parts of games which are constructed regarding to evoke feelings of being overwhelmed and so on. And if we put this into educational tools, we can also ask the question how appropriate this is, and if we perhaps need always somebody who has like, let's call it an interaction expertise to go with the scholars. So I was thinking this way around. Perhaps it helps to understand what I mean.
Yes, it does. So for us, we had the discussion because we thought it would not be possible for us to do this, to evoke this emotion of awe or evoke fright or something like that. So in our game, we thought the emotion must be happy. You must be happy and surprised. And I think surprise is the most safe emotion to. That's what you want. You want a surprise because you thought it was different, and now you know something else was going on. So that was what we were aiming for, and we let the content dictate that. And I think that's a very safe way to go. On the other hand, we had a discussion about the creation of real medieval worlds, where you see the thunder coming in, birds flying over, which is more the game-like. And I think that we need to be careful with that, because if we do that, if we create that awe that students know from, for example, movies, then we are over-promising. Because actually we don't know. The Lausanne project is a very nice example of trying to recreate it, but it's a large research project. It's not something you not open a pot of horse poo, put it in there, and then you're done. So I think that we need to be careful with creating things that we cannot account for, trigger emotions, and then people will start to expect those emotions when we are teaching them things. So that would be my angle. I hope that helped.
Okay. Thank you very much. At the end, perhaps we can say I would like to thank
put it for
thank you to you three, or our three experts, for answering the questions, and the audience and the internet for asking the questions. I think it was a good discussion with many perhaps new perspectives. And now we are starting in the break for lunch, and we are going to the Mensa. Perhaps we should do it in a group, so nobody can get lost in one of these buildings, and in an hour we are all healthy back here completely. Thank you very much.
Thank you.